Real quick, before we start this podcast episode, I just want to say thank you for tuning into the Marc Colcer podcast. I know you've got a million things that you could be doing right now, and the fact that you're taking time out of your day to watch this podcast episode truly means the world to me, and I just want to say thank you for that. If you'd like to continue to support the podcast, right below this video, if you could hit the subscribe button, and then, hey, if you got some more time and you want to hit the download button, the comment button, the like button, the share button, any of those buttons, it's greatly, greatly appreciated. It helps for other people to find out about the podcast, and it helps for you to be notified about future episodes. So if you guys could take a quick second, hit the subscribe button, I would really appreciate that. Outside of that, this episode and every other episode is brought to you guys by Roast Umber Coffee. As some of you guys know, I co-founded Roast Umber Coffee, and we have the greatest farmers in Guatemala and Honduras and the greatest roaster in Grand Rapids, Michigan, all to bring you guys the greatest cup of coffee possible. So if you'd like to try it out, go to our website, use the coupon code MARC30, and you're going to get 30% off your coffee. Now on to the episode. Thank you guys again for tuning in. Welcome to the Marc Colcer podcast. But yeah, so the reason why I don't do the podcast via Zoom is because it doesn't tell you as much as a holder of that project or somebody who's potentially going to mint that project. Like, right. Hey, you know, this is a project that's worth holding on to or whatever, because when somebody actually makes the effort to come out to LA to do the podcast, it tells you a ton about it, right? Somebody making time for a Zoom call or for a Twitter space or whatever, like, it's not that difficult to do, right? So here, I know it's a pain in the ass for some people, right? Like, I'm talking to some projects and they're like, I have to get my visa situation figured out, you know, things like that. I have to get an international flight, or I have to drive this far, or I have to, you know, whatever, right? So there's a lot more effort that comes into somebody coming out here and doing the podcast, and so that's why I like doing it this way. Right. The downside of that is obviously you can't put them out as often as you would like, right? There's a time where it takes a little bit more effort to get them set up and everything like that. So that's where we're at with it.
It almost seems more meaningful that way, though. Like you said, like if you only do maybe 10 every 6 months, if less, like people look forward to that instead of like, oh, you're putting out one every 3 days, like a Rogan or someone like that, where it's, he's a different scale, a different beast. But I don't know. I noticed that people get hyped up when you post them on Twitter.
Yeah, they go nuts, especially if I ask people to like, hey, which project should I have on next?
Right.
I do want to do them more regularly than I'm doing them, because to be honest, it's kind of like it's good for me to be in the groove of like recording them and asking the questions and things like that, because there's times I'm editing back and I'm like, oh, fuck, I should have asked this. Yeah. But, when you're out of the groove and everything like that, then it takes you a second to get back into it, right?
Yep.
So I would like to do them a little bit more often. I would also like to have more projects on before they mint, so that I can ask some of the tough questions. Like, it's easy to talk about a project like you guys, because you guys have been around for a minute. You've proven yourselves. But when there's a project that hasn't proven themselves yet, I'd like to have them on, talk about what they're planning on doing, maybe be a little bit more, kind of getting into them, right?
Grill it a little bit.
Grill them a little bit and find out what how do we actually feel about this project and stuff like that.
Right.
So I would like to do that. And I also think that's one of the things we can talk about in a second in terms of doxing. Because I have a thought on this, but I want to hear your opinion on this. But so to begin, real quick, can you explain who you are and a little bit about yourself?
Yep. So I go by Juice, Twitter, Discord. It's actually a nickname from my childhood, so it doesn't feel uncomfortable blending my doxed life and my online personality, for lack of a better term. But so I've been with Remnants since day one. I'm the growth lead. I like to think of myself as co-founder 3. So we have 2 co-founders, and then I was technically employee 1. But yeah, I'm the growth lead. I do all Twitter. I do the spaces, and just really, finding a way to hit a larger market as we have right now.
There we go. And so the reason why I wanted to have you on is because we talk a lot about gaming projects. That's one of the things in the NFT space, especially back in like November, December, where everybody was a gaming project, right?
Yep.
And you guys are one that has actually put out a game. So I wanted to have you guys on to talk about that, talk about kind of the future of Remnants, talk about the NFT space in general, talk about the gaming space in general. Mm-hmm. But before we get started with that, let's just talk about kind of your background and your background with NFTs and things like that. So tell me a little bit more about you.
Yep. Yeah. So I started with Remnants back, when we were just in the ideation phase in, let's just say, October. Prior to that, kind of a funny story. These guys found me while I was working on another Solana NFT project. It had to be one of like the first 10. And unfortunately, that one just didn't pan out, for different reasons, whatnot. But, we had our big success early on. I was running that Twitter. So these guys, the Remnants co-founders, who are located in the UK, reached out to me. They said, hey, we think you've been doing a great job. You want to come work with us? And I said, sure, yeah. What do you guys got working? What are you guys working on? And we went back and forth, and it was always like, I didn't know what they had until one day, finally, I'm like, hey, can you guys just send me the fucking art? I want to see what we got going on here, because you want me to commit, and I haven't seen anything yet. Yeah. And they sent me the first Remnant, and it looks different from what it does now. It was like true, again, ideation phase. Yeah. But they sent it to me, and then they sent me the idea, which is, has been iterated on and pivoted on. But I saw the Remnant, and I'm like, oh, okay. That makes a shitload of sense. Yeah, let's do it. I think, the gaming space, there's a lot to be done. As a gamer myself, everything that was being put out there in terms of marketing is all for AAA games for the most part. And that's great and sexy and whatnot. But as a gamer, those games take a long, long time to build. And as someone who wants to start playing a game, I know there's a ton out there, there's an open market for it. There need to be something that came to market. And that's what we had to figure out how to get done for the Remnants, really.
Yeah. So going back a quick second. So you said you had been working on a project kind of in the beginning stages of things. Yep. How did you get into NFTs in general? Like what was your, how did you even find out about NFTs?
Yeah, on Ethereum, of course, dude. It was just, I've been in the crypto Twitter space for a while. And that's how I got started in, Solana NFTs. Again, someone found me because I've been shit posting for years now on my Twitter handle, my personal account. So I started buying NFTs probably about a little earlier than this time last year. And it was something really fucking dumb. It was I think it was called Chad's NFTs. And that little weird dude, he's facing different ways. He's got the big blonde hair. Yeah. He was wearing a Saturdays are for the boys jersey. And as a Barstool fan, oh, that could maybe be worth double what it is now in a week or so. But, my background, I've spent the last 2 years or so working for a crypto institutional firm, which is my 9-to-5. That did allow me to explore different parts of NFTs. And I realized very quickly the utility for these things was way, way, way beyond just basic art, which is what it was about a year ago. So I stayed involved as an investor. It kept making more and more sense. And here we are now, where there's gaming, there's utility, there's, you soon will be able to probably use an NFT as your 401k plan or your 529 plan for your kids or your house deed. So I really do believe we're in the beginning innings, maybe in the first inning, maybe bottom first, top two, but we're so early on, man. It's just been fun seeing it from, almost close to inception.
Yeah, I mean, I think even, sometimes I go back when I'm prepping for a podcast like this, I'll go back and watch people's podcast episodes talking about a project, sometimes right after they mint or whatever. Yeah. And even I was watching one earlier today about Remnants, and they were talking about Solana, and they were like, well, Solana might dip below $100, and I was like, wow. The good old days. Good old days. I was like, man, the idea of $100 Solana right now is my wet dream. Yeah. So, it's just it'll be funny to watch this back 5 years from now. And it's hopefully at that point, Solana's $5,000. We're all mega rich. But, right. But it's, or we're all living on the street together, right? Who knows?
Yeah. We'll be together though. Either way.
Together. Yeah. Wag me. We're all going to make it, babe. We're all going to be on the street together. We're going to be in a palace together, but it's one of the two. Okay.
Hell yeah.
We don't know. But But yeah, I think it's really interesting to kind of look at the market, look at how it's changed and everything like that, and how the NFT space has changed. And I very much do believe, just like you said, we're in the bottom of the first inning, and this is a long road to go. And and so sometimes when we have a market like we're experiencing right now, where Solana's in the shitter, Solana's what $32 right now.
Yeah, so flirting with lower.
Yeah, so who knows? Maybe next week it's $60, maybe next week it's $10. I don't know. Nobody knows. We just kind of roll with it. But anybody who's been in the crypto space for a while knows the market just does what the market does, and we just kind of ride the wave and just go with it. But if you believe in what you're building, if you believe in projects, this is the time right now that I believe to find great projects, because you're looking at our projects building right now. Do they have the funds to keep themselves afloat for the next foreseeable future and things like that? And that's the sort of stuff that I think is really important, because when something like this happens, I think a lot of people want to know, hey, do you guys even have the ability to pay your rent, to pay your employees, things like that? Are you going to, when people are panicked, and people are panicked right now because right now people are getting hurt in their own pocketbooks, right? Then the way to keep the market calm is to explain to people simply hey, are we good? And to be honest, the way I look at it is, if a project's not telling me right now that I'm good, I imagine you're fucked. So, like, I really, really look at the projects that are saying, like, hey, we're good. Don't even worry about things. Like, yes, this sucks. Yes, we're not a fan of what's happening right now, but, like, we're good. We have money staved away so that we can pay ourselves, pay our employees, things like that. And so we're going to keep building. We're going to keep doing our thing. Don't worry about us. You focus on you right now, right? I think that is something that a lot of people want to hear, and there's less projects saying that right now, and I think it would do a lot of good going back to transparency and things like that that would help out and go a long way. So to get into that real quick, talking about all of that, we talked a little bit before we started the podcast about doxing. And so you were comfortable today coming on here and showing your face and everything like that. And I think there's some people who obviously appreciate that. There's a lot of reasons why people stay doxed, not doxed, you know, whatever, or to like what level people dox, you know?
Right.
So I'm actually curious to start. When we have new projects and whatnot, you know, we've seen some rugs as of recently and stuff like that. What are your thoughts on doxing and what is your definition of doxing? I'm curious on that.
That's a good question. So I'll preface this by saying I do not hold it against anyone who wants to purely dox 100%. You know, there's different levels of doxing, like me showing my face today. Someone like yourself, who, like I've heard you say in your podcast before, you've got your friggin' middle name in your Twitter.
Right on Twitter,
yeah, so everyone could, like you said, and we were bullshitting before, they could, in theory, find you, find where you live, come and beat you up.
Don't do that. Don't do that, guys. Don't do that.
No, but in theory, but I thought about that. So I was telling you before, I actually had planned to wear a mask.
Yeah.
Just for the sense of anonymity, you know, keep things, Solana Money Boy or 0x had put it well, I think. And I respected that, where he said, as a creator and as an artist, it gives me the, you know, chance to be creative without having to worry about that security. For myself, and why I chose not to wear a mask today, is because I think we're in a very pivotal and painful time right now. And I think for my community and the Remnants and the users, it just helps to see that there's a real guy who's willing to put, you know, his face out there and say, like, hey, you know, I'm here, you know, things suck right now, but we'll get through this together. And I think it's important just for transparency in this moment. And again, it's just part of building the brand. There's guys behind our digitalized, pixelized characters.
Yeah.
So I think it's important. That's why I chose to just, you know, show face today.
Yeah.
Quite literally.
I think the definition, like the way I look at doxing is, I think transparency is more important necessarily per se than doxing. Like transparency, going back to like Frank from the D-Gods, Frank is not doxed, but Frank is incredibly transparent. So people trust Frank. And so even when he comes out and says like, hey, Duppy's art isn't coming out until actual mint, no other project would be able to do that. But the reason why the community allows that to happen with Duppy's and Frank and everything like that is because the trust that Frank has built by being transparent.
He's executed time and time again.
Yeah. So even like the last few weeks, I've heard different launch pads talking about like what they view as doxing.
Right.
And I've been a little disappointed, to be honest, in what their definition of what doxing is. This is the way that I think it should be done. And mind you, I'll probably get some blowback from people who don't like this idea. I don't care.
This is going to be good.
This is my opinion. The real way that we should do doxing is that some people need to know exactly who the fuck you are, what you look like, what your name is. And I'm not talking a damn Zoom call, okay? That's not enough in my opinion, because there are a lot of ways that you can screw that up, and you can and all of that. And we saw that with Reptilian or whatever the hell it was called.
Reptilian Gang or whatever. Yeah,
Renegade or
Renegade.
something.
There you go.
Yeah. We saw with that they were like, he was doxxed, and it's like, well, obviously he was not, you know? And so a Zoom call isn't enough, in my opinion.
Yep.
To me, if you're going to launch a project on a launch pad, I think you should be a little bit more selective on what projects you allow to do that, right? Or maybe there's like a level that it's like, hey, this project is like tier 5, meaning they're like completely doxed. We know who they are. We know all this. They've done podcasts. They've done AMAs. They've done Zooms. They've done spaces. Like we feel confident that this project is like through and through put together, right? Mm-hmm. And the way I view it is a lot of projects, you know, I can confirm who some of their founders are and things like that. And obviously I'm not going to give people's private information away, but it feels good for me to know their private information, because then I'm like, hey, I know something about you where like technically you have to trust me then to do that. And I have to trust you that you are who you are and everything like that. Right. So in my opinion, the way that we should do it is, if a project is going to go on a launch pad and all of that, I think the Launchpad should fly that project founder out to them to meet them. Now, the reason why I think they should pay for it, the Launchpad, is because the Launchpad's going to benefit, and they can obviously price that into what they're charging for their services and things like that.
Sure, yeah.
But they then know exactly who that person is. So they can look at that person's ID, they can look at their passport, and maybe you make it so that they have to bring multiple forms of, hey, just like for renting a place, right? Let's see a utility bill, or just like when you get your license, a utility bill, a, bank statement, whatever. And that way you're seeing all of that. That's not to say to go release all of the information publicly. I get why we can't do that. But somebody needs to know that information, because otherwise there's no leverage over that person to keep them from not rugging, right? Sure. So, or to keep them from rugging. So I think we should do stuff like that. I also think as a community, we need to demand more from a project before they mint. So even I've talked to a few projects about, come on to my podcast before you mint. That way I can grill you a little bit. We can get some more information out of you. We can learn a little bit more about your project. And I think those two things in combination would go over really, really well, where the Launchpad would be able to say, hey guys, we know this person. We've sat there, we've had dinner with this person. We've talked with this person. Like we've, multiple times in person, we've seen multiple things that show who they really are and everything like that. You're not going to see a reptilian renegade in a situation like that. It would be much more difficult to pull that off. Right now, it's so easy to rug that we're not even making it difficult. We need to make it difficult to rug and make it so that people have to, a rugger should be worried about, hey, if I do this, there's a chance that, I get busted, caught, whatever. The reptilian renegade dude is just on Twitter shitposting afterwards. And it's because there wasn't enough done beforehand to make it so that Launchpad knew enough to protect people who are minting that project. That was piss poor. So I was disappointed with that, and I would like to see more projects do more or more Launchpads do more in order to provide people who are minting that project a little bit more security than we're currently offering.
I like that. And I like the tiers that you had. So even if you had 3 tiers, let's just say it's 5, but at least it then really puts the investor in the hot seat. And, you have people, of course, are going to, right now say, yeah, we got rugged. But if it's a tier 5 and it's rugs, then you at least have that liability on that individual, on that team. Right now, there just needs to be more liability. I think that's something that's lacking. And again, as tough as someone who does believe in decentralization, we're not going to reach that next level of maturation as an industry if that is not there.
Right.
Picture that in the real world of investments. Picture not knowing who the individual is, having no idea what the team's background is. It's scary for investors, and I agree with you. That'd be cool. I like that idea. Did you tweet about that?
Yeah.
Someone had mentioned something like that. I don't know if it was you.
I think somebody else had said, I think, projects should have to go on the Marc Colcer podcast. And I was like, well, selfishly, I agree.
Sure.
But, I think it would be good for people to be able to ask some of the questions. And especially when there's projects that have a lot of FUD going into the mint, let's address that shit. You either have a good answer to explain some of the shit that's gone on, or you don't have a good answer, and people should hear that and therefore realize they shouldn't mint, right?
Yeah.
And so, but as a community, people are going to do what we allow them to get away with, right?
Yeah.
So if we make it where, we're like, hey, we're cool with everybody being super, super anonymous, and we're cool with completely decentralized, actions and things like that, well then guys, we're going to see more rugs. Yeah. So we got to find a middle ground somewhere, and we're not currently there with it. And once again, I'm not stating that everybody's information needs to be completely public and all of that. I get that that's a huge
Launchpad.
Right. Yeah. But when it comes to what we should do in order to try to protect people who are holding that, there's stuff that we should know, or people who are minting that project, there's stuff that we should know ahead of time in order to make it so that there's a less likely occurrence that project completely rugs.
Right.
Then we get into a separate conversation of what is a rug, what is a slow rug, all of that. Yeah. But when we're talking about straight up, somebody just taking the funds and running, we should have more to stop that sort of thing from occurring. And I will say, I think we've done a better job of those things not happening as much. But every time we have a reptilian renegade, that does more to hurt the space than anything else. And so we need to prevent those situations from occurring anytime they ever occur, right?
Yeah.
So that's just my general thoughts on all of that.
But, I'm with it. Yeah, so I like that.
But all right, so getting back into Remnants and everything like that, how did you guys come up with the idea of Remnants?
Yeah, so great question. We knew going into it that there was this niche, the gaming niche. All three of us who initially started it were gamers at heart. We saw that there was mostly on Ethereum. We're going to launch on Ethereum, but we started to look into the costs and the overhead and whatnot, and it very quickly realized for what we wanted to build, which is like more of an idle gamified staking game. It didn't make sense on Ethereum. So we did our research, said Solana actually does make sense. It seems to be that scalable solution. And we, in our heart of hearts, felt and still feel that Solana will be one of the de facto gaming chains. So, we kind of surveyed the gaming landscape, and we saw, again, just a ton of AAA games that are very well capitalized being built. And what we noticed is the problem with this is, as the investor, you're buying the NFTs. And these could be hundreds, they could be in the thousands of dollars. And for some of these, I'm not going to throw names of games out there because I just don't want to throw anyone under the bus. But you're sitting; those NFTs are just sitting dormant for a long ass time. They're sitting dormant up until that game is actually launched. Maybe you can stake it for whatever the utility token might be, but that's pretty much the end of it. So we knew from day one we wanted to have an idle game. Looking at games like Clash of Clans as kind of a example in the Web 2 world, where you sit maybe for 5, 10, 30 minutes a day, be able to play. But just bring that to like the blockchain and play to earn space. But we knew we wanted to have something playable day one, which had pushed back our initial release date was supposed to be like early November. And we ended up having our initial white holders mint, I believe like December 22nd, right before Christmas. Perfect timing. Everyone gets a nice little gift under the tree. But yes, we knew we wanted to have an idle staking game. We knew we wanted to make it gamified. We've really, what it is now is not at all what we drew up in the blueprints. So it's kind of cool to see where it's come. But again, just to summarize, we knew we wanted to get into the idle gaming niche to differentiate and have something playable and actually put that NFT to work for our investors who put their faith in us, if that makes sense.
Yeah, completely. So for those who don't have a Remnant and therefore haven't played the game, can you summarize kind of what the game is all about?
Absolutely. So the Remnants, again, idle staking game. It's set in the post-apocalypse metaverse. There's 8,000 playable characters right now. The initial mint was 4,000 males, and then about a month ago we did the 4,000 females to really bring things full circle. Everyone's hanging out in Longwood Valley, which is the name of the town. The idea is behind the game. The apocalypse happened in the metaverse. Everything blew the fuck up. Now we have to build the city back and really the world back. So these 8,000 folks are the survivors, and those remnants, the NFTs, are the heroes of the game. The remnant you do need to play at this time. I think we can get into the next generation of what we'll be building here in a second to bring it more free to play. But for right now, you do need a remnant to play. You send them out on these loot trips, where essentially missions. You collect our utility game token, which is camp. And you also collect items. You could upgrade those items. You could break them down. We've actually got an in-game marketplace that we just launched the crack of dawn this morning. So there really is, we've built out quite a unique tokenomics and economy, really, where players can, if they want, they can take out their camp and exchange it. We'll have an LP in the future, but they could truly be a play-to-earn player where they're just taking their camp and exchanging it for Sol right now on like famous FoxFed or Solar Fox's platform. Or what we're finding, and which has been very positive, is people are spending a shit ton of camp in-game, because what we've done is, and this was our goal all along, was to build a fun game where it's you want your power of your NFT to increase in-game. You want those better items. You want to increase your ability to earn more. And it's really a social thing too, right? So why does anybody play any game? To hang out, meet people, hang out with their friends. And I think that's where we've gotten away from gaming, especially in blockchain. Like you and I were bullshitting before. Nothing's really all that fun yet. And that's why nothing's really working, because it's been Ponzi's for the most part. It sucks to say that, but it's just been really something that just incentivizes those big holders, early investors. And we're trying to change that where, whether you get in today or if you got in on day one, you want to play the game for the game and not just for that game token.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's something that I remember when I got into NFT space, and we'd be in our like little Telegram group chat talking about a project, and my one buddy would be like, "Well, it's a gaming project, whatever." And then we'd see like a preview of the game, and I was like, "All right, that looks like shit." So are we just avoiding the elephant in the room that looks fucking awful and that does not look fun? And what are we doing here? And so I think the gaming space is a really interesting thing where if it's done right, we can create the next wave of gaming culture in general. But if we don't, then these games are all going to die and like none of this is going to work out and, you know, and whatever. And so I think right now, one of the things I think you guys did a great job of was having that game ready to go from day one. Obviously, the game has grown from day one, but a lot of projects, it's like, hey, it's coming. And it's like, okay, but how do we even know that you can do that, right? And this goes back to the whole doxing and transparency side of things. If you say, well, we have experience in the gaming market, okay, that doesn't really mean much. Like, I could tell you that I have experience in whatever. And, like, without a title, I did this. I worked for Epic Gaming for such and such. Like, it doesn't really mean a shit ton to be like, I've worked in gaming for a period of time or whatever. I think people need, and this goes back to what we're learning in this, is that certain projects need more levels of transparency. When it comes to a game, I want to know, have you worked for a legitimate gaming company? Have you done what you're saying that you can do? Like, that is a lot. Like, if somebody put a gun to my head right now and said, Mark, can you create a video game? No, I can't. So you might as well pull the trigger because I can't. Like, I don't have any experience in that. I can't do that shit. Like, I would have to hire people who know how to do that. And so if I were to ever put out a gaming project, I would have to hire people who have a gaming background in order to do that. But I'm not going to just sit here, you know, mess around on YouTube and learn how to create a video game. Like, it's going to take a little bit more effort than that and more time necessary than like what people are willing to give you, right? So if you give me 10 years and say, Mark, can you create a video game? I can probably do that in 10 years, right? 10 years in the NFT space is like 2 weeks. So, you know, so you got to be making moves in 2 weeks or otherwise people move on to the next project, right? So
exactly.
Talk about kind of how your plan for, or the overall team's plan has changed with Remnants over time from when you guys first came out to where it's at now.
Yeah. So right now, again, we were talking before, it is gamified staking. And I think it will always be that, but we're going to bring more social and interactive aspects into the game itself. Like, for example, right now, it truly is like a go your own, find your own adventure, you know, interact and sell and buy on the marketplace with other players, but it's really a first person, one player game. What we want to do in the future is bring more aspects like PvP, PvE, where you can go out on like you've got a boss out in the woods somewhere, and if you don't slay this guy, you know, he's going to come into town and fucking kill everyone. So we want to bring like, you know, we'll be like go on a mission with 2 people, 4 people, a whole gang of people. So we want to make it more social, and we have to actually bring some sort of strategy with a team into the game. You know, that's probably outside of our real estate play, which is our camps. You know, I actually missed that in the first intros. We've got the 8,000 remnants and the 4,000 camps, which is our the real estate, which within the ecosystem itself. You know, that's actively being worked on. The NFTs are buyable, sellable on Magic Eden and Fractal, whatever the marketplaces. But really, we want to bring a more social aspect into it. So there'll be, you know, more to do as a team and as a unit. You know, we've thrown on this idea forever, but I think we're get there from the conceptualization phase of having gangs where you will literally compete with other remnants in game, you know, whatever it might be. You have to collect the most items, or you have to, you know, build the city back within, you know, a week's time, and then be rewarded in game, in kind, with the utility tokens, with items. So we want it to be more social. We want it to be more interactive. And again, I think the benefit was getting an active user base from day one. And now, like any other game, you know, I think it was like World of Warcraft, where you capped out at like level 60 and then level 80, and then, you know, else, whatever it is. We have the ability to pull the leverage strings by adding on new game content. So, you know, we spent a ton of time on the tokenomics model. Like, we brought in, you know, mathematicians, an expert in tokenomics who's pretty well known in the NFT space. We spent a lot of time up front to make sure, from the economy standpoint, this thing can last a long fucking time. And we've done that really well. And now we've given ourselves the runway to really create a fun game with these social aspects, with these missions, with PvE, PvE, add on more items, add on, you know, expansion of the map where you can go do other things that you can do now. So we've really set ourselves up quite nicely to expand this thing. And, you know, we joke about it in the Discord, but the fun part is the sky's the limit now. And we take a lot of feedback from our users, because we consider ourselves in a working beta, really. Game works, looks great, you know, earn money, play, but we're still like actively taking feedback. And so like, oh, okay, that guy said that in the chat, like that makes sense. Let's actually build that out. That sounds fun as fuck. So It's just been cool to really have that playable and have everyone giving us constant feedback. It's been refreshing how little floor price and how little talk there is about the actual play and earn side, and we'll never promote it as a real play and earn. We just want to build a fun game that people want to come back to and play it for the game itself.
So how often right now are you guys putting out an update? So like, is it every few weeks? Is it every few months? Like what is it right now in terms of, on average, how often you guys are putting out an update?
Yep. Early on, it was probably bi-weekly. Right now, I'd say as we introduce more and more, and as the builds of the game get more and more intricate, it will become less often. So like, for example, I think our last update was March, and we just threw our update out last night. So that was about 2.5 months. But the build was very, again, we're doing this all for the first time. There is no precedence that we can look to and say, so-and-so built this. We can tap into their resources or technology. We're building everything fresh from a development standpoint. So, as much as I like to sit here and say like, yeah, we'd like to put out new content every month. It'll become and is less infrequent over time. Small things like adding on a new mission or adding some items, that's easy, but that's not what we want. We don't want easy. We want it to be a fun strategy idle game. So, we're ready. Our devs, we put out an update last night. They're already working on the next update. We know exactly what we have to get done. The artwork's all complete. It's just building it. So, the build never stops.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, real quick, I got to interrupt this episode of the podcast to tell you guys about a new sponsor. Now, before you call me a sellout, I promise you I'm not doing that. I'm not ruining the integrity of the show. I'm not just accepting any sponsorship opportunity. I'm not doing that. I actually reached out to this company, and this company is called Hey Wallet, and I reached out to them because somebody had actually used Hey Wallet to send me Solana. And so when they did that, I was like, what is Hey Wallet? I'm not familiar with them. How does this work? Everything like that. Basically, Hey Wallet is a way that you can send somebody cryptocurrency without knowing their wallet address. All you have to know is their Twitter username. So, for example, if you're watching this podcast and you're like, oh my God, this is the most amazing podcast I've ever seen, I want to send Marc 1,000 Solana. What you would do is you would create an account on Hey Wallet. You would load it just like any other wallet, and then you would tweet, Hey Wallet, send Marc Colcer 1,000 Solana. And boom, I get 1,000 Solana. And so immediately there's a transaction on Twitter which you get to see, and then there's also a receipt for that, and it goes up right on SoulScan. So you can basically see everything with the whole transaction right then and there. And that's one of the coolest parts about Hey Wallet is that there's the social element to cryptocurrency. And that's what I thought was really, really cool about it, because Twitter is such an important thing for the Solana space. And one of the big things I talk about all the time is onboarding people into the space. And so what easier way to do that but than by saying to somebody, hey, get onto Twitter, I'm going to send you Solana through Hey Wallet, and boom, now you're ready to go. You're ready to buy NFTs. You're ready to do this. You're ready to do that. And actually, one of the new features of Hey Wallet is that you can actually send NFTs back and forth through Hey Wallet. So it's just a really easy way to transact, and it's an easy way to send somebody Solana without having to ask them for their wallet address or anything like that. So if you want to show appreciation to somebody, like I said, hey, if you're watching this podcast, you're like, this is the most amazing podcast ever, and you want to send me Solana, all you got to do is go Hey Wallet, send Marc Colcer 1,000 Solana, and bang. I'll retweet that. I'll quote tweet that. I'll do the whole nine. So that's the new sponsor of the podcast. So I want you guys to show some love to Hey Wallet. We're going to be doing some really cool giveaways, doing some really cool contests and things like that, because I'm all about onboarding new people into the space, about giving back to people in the space. And that's what I talked about with Hey Wallet. And that's why I agreed to work with them, is because they're all about that too. And so, yeah, that's why I brought Hey Wallet into the podcast, and I'm looking forward to working with them. And now back to the episode. I want to give a shout out, by the way, to one of the members of your community, Bison Trades.
Our guy.
There we go.
Our guy Bison.
Bison does a great job. Oh, by the way, we can cheers real quick. Cheers.
Hell yeah.
You're drinking a nice Voodoo Ranger. I'm drinking some Roast Umber coffee. Use coupon code MARC30. Get 30% off your Roast Umber coffee. We don't have any Voodoo Ranger we're giving away, but maybe sometime soon. But yeah, Bison does a really good job of making videos talking about kind of the gameplay and kind of some of his advice for how to kind of play the game most efficiently and things like that. I watched a bunch of his videos leading up to doing the podcast. So shout out Bison Trades. I'll put one of his videos in the description for this for anybody anybody who wants to watch that.
Yep.
But I think that's awesome to see somebody who's really, really passionate about the space and really passionate about what you guys are building, and then super helpful to the rest of the community to kind of learn how to play. So if anybody watches this podcast today and they're like, hey, I want to figure out how to play this game in the most efficient way possible, Bison, once again, does a great job of breaking that down for everybody.
He's awesome. And what I like about crypto is it is a true meritocracy, right? So Bison took it upon himself to just start doing that, like you said, because he just loves the game. He's actually helping us build some stuff for the game right now. Like, we're all ears, man. Like, this is not a closed door. And he came to us and said, I think you guys should be doing this and this. Now he's helping our strategy and project manager build out our next iteration of like our free-to-play game. So he does a great job. Cheers to you, buddy. But again, we hope that there's becoming more and more of that, which is kind of a reinforcing like feedback loop of like, all right, we're onto something here. Yeah. There's something where actually users enjoy and they want to make content and put their face on it nonetheless.
Yeah.
Like, he's doxed everything but his social security and his real name. But for all intents and purposes, he's doxed. So it means a lot to us that he puts his stamp of approval in those videos.
Yeah, no doubt. It helps out a ton when members of the community are providing feedback and things like that. I mean, That's why I think it's important for members of the community to watch these podcasts and to talk about or to listen to a project that maybe they don't hold or whatever, because I think there's a lot that we can learn from that. And then there's ideas that you can bring up. Like, I hit up one of the guys from Kets the other day and ran an idea past him, and I don't own a Ket, but I was like, I think that'd be super cool if you guys did this, and we'll see if it leads to anything. Maybe it does, maybe it doesn't, but like, I want to see projects do well. I want to see Remnants do well. I want to see, I would love to buy every project that I have on the podcast and things like that. I can't always afford to buy every project that comes on here. So, hey, make sure when you guys are watching the video, when you see the ads come up, just let that play. Okay. Just let that ad play. Okay. I need that money. But then I can buy all these projects. But until then,
do you want to play Remnants?
I mean, I would love to play Remnants. I mean, I would love to try it out. I mean, I'm not a huge gaming person. Like, I play Fortnite every once in a while with my buddies from Michigan because it's kind of our way to like stay social, right? Like, we hop on, play together, talk together, whatever. But yeah, I wouldn't say like I'm a huge gaming person. If something is really fun though, I'm always down to do it. And also if it's easy to do, like if I can play it when I'm on a plane, or if I can play it when I'm like on the treadmill walking, or if I'm walking around the neighborhood or something like that. The ease of it also helps too.
Yep.
But yeah, no, I'm always down to play, and I'm always like with you guys. I mean, obviously, I would love to, because I would love to provide any feedback I have or anything like that. But I think it's important in general for projects to listen to feedback that people are giving them, their community's giving them, and and I think that's one of the things that we've seen a lot of the really successful projects in the last 6 months or so. They've done a good job of listening to their community, listening to people who are outside the community who are providing advice and constructive criticism and things like that. And some ideas you're going to implement, some you won't, but like it's always good to hear what people are thinking and then to figure out from there like what you want to do, and if there's things from that you can build off of and everything, because no matter how creative you are, no one comes up with every idea. We all need some help from time to time. So always helps to have people giving back to the space.
All right, I'll send you one. After this, send me your wallet. I'll send you one, as long as you provide some feedback.
I will definitely provide some feedback.
We're good?
There we go. Yes, nice. I can definitely do that. It's always important for, like, I want to provide feedback to every project that comes on and everything, and to other people's projects and whatnot. Like, once again, I want the space to do well. So when we see a project blow up and then crater, like, that doesn't help anybody, right? So the more that we're providing feedback and advice and things like that, and when we do it in a constructive way, sometimes we go on Twitter and it's a little bit like, it can get toxic, especially when times like this, when the market's a little shitty. So it's good to provide feedback. It's good to provide advice and to give your kind of as a user your thoughts on the project and whatnot. And then as a team, it's important to let people know that you're hearing them and that you will, maybe you'll implement some of those ideas, maybe you won't, but that you're hearing them, because I think people want to feel like they're heard in the space, So, and I think when we build that, you build the greatest community around your project, and when you do that, obviously the floor price tends to go right along with that. So. But so talking about the market and the market kind of being in the shitter right now, one of the questions or two questions, I'll just let you answer both at the same time. So what's your plan to make sure that your team has funding during a bear market like this? And then did your team ever Did your team ever convert any SOL into USDC in order to kind of safeguard your team in case of a downturn in the market?
Yeah. So short answer, we did. We did, I'll tell a quick story, just like anecdote and context helps. So myself and our co-founder, Studwood's his name, we were doing our financials. So, this was back before we did our female mint. So we're just kind of, we've got a decent sized team. We've got, about 8 full-time folks and then a couple of contractors. So we wanted to be cognizant of the fact that, hey, we have to have enough runway where we can build what we said we're going to build. So we're running our financials. I want to say Sol was like 115 at this time. Again, the good old days. But we're running our financials and we're like, hey, let's be really fucking conservative when we do this because we have no idea what's going to happen. So we ran our financials at, 115, and then we're like, all right, let's do Sol at 80. Let's do Sol at, should we do 50? Yeah, let's just do it. It's probably not going to hit 50, but let's do 50. And I remember saying to him, like, should we run this shit at like 20 Sol? Should we forecast for 20 Sol? And he's like, oh, we could do it just for shits and giggles. We know, we'll be straight. So we ran into 20. So we planned ahead. We planned well ahead. Now, if it keeps going further, we would, not to say that we won't be fine. We will. We've done a good job. We converted some to USD, DC. We're going to put an LP out. So full transparency, that LP was kept in Sol because it was always going to be a Sol and Camp liquidity pool. Again, we're not going to release that for a bit because what we're seeing right now is in this fear-based economy with something like StepN, with something like Jewel and DeFi Kingdoms, shit's just getting dumped on the market, and it's an easy way to really lose faith in the community, to lose the community's faith. So we're being very strategic when we launch that LP. But yeah, so we put aside some for a rainy day. The team feels good about it. We're going to build what we said we're going to build, and it's full steam ahead, if not more. Like I said, Bison's helping us build something. We want to bring a more open, accessible, free-to-play game to market as well. Again, we'll talk about that a little bit, but we're good.
There we go. And I think I'm going to give a little advice to every project out there right now. If you're good right now, say it, because this is a time when people panic. When you look at your own pocketbooks and you're getting hit, and life is expensive right now, not just in the NFT space, life is expensive in general. Like, I'm looking for new places to move because I'm staying in LA, but I'm moving into a new apartment. I've been in this place for like 5 years and I just need a new space. So in like 2 months, by the way, this podcast setup is going to look very different. If the market keeps cratering, like you might see me on the side of the street doing a podcast setup, who knows? But life is expensive right now, and our NFTs, crypto, everything's getting hit. Like, our stocks are getting hit. Everything's getting hit. So when people panic is when they sell. And so the more that you can keep people calm by just saying, hey guys, we're good. We have money set aside. We're building. We're fine. Focus on you. That is going to help people calm the fuck down. So project leaders, if you're listening to this right now, if you guys have money set aside for a rainy day fund and everything like that, talk about it, because people need that sort of transparency. They're going to love hearing that kind of transparency, because what I do know is going to happen. You and I have both been in crypto space for a long time. The market goes like this, and it goes like this, and then it goes like this, but it keeps, in theory, or in how it's gone in the past, it has always kind of gone back up, right? And so there's going to be projects that 6 months from now say, hey, back in June, when Solana dipped, let's say it goes down to 20, right? Yep. There's gonna be projects that come out and say, we had liquidated at $100 and we bought back in at 20 and we made a fucking killing, and like, we're set up really good. Those projects are gonna moon because people are gonna be like, they were geniuses, right? Yep. So that sort of transparency is important because people want to know, right? Even if a project hasn't liquidated anything, if you're doing that right now in order to safeguard in case it goes lower or whatever you're doing to safeguard your project, people just need to know that it's going to be good, because there are a lot of projects that are simply going to run out of money right now. And so they didn't plan for this. They didn't think about, what if Sol drops, whatever. They were operating like Sol's going to be 250 or more for the foreseeable future, right? Yep. So if you are good, talk about it. Your community will love that. And if you're not good, we're going to find out. Yeah. Discord can get quiet.
No, that's sound advice. That's really sound advice. And, I'll bring it full circle and come back to why I'm so bullish on gaming. So with everything being in the shitter as it is right now, and could very well get worse, gaming, I remember being in the 2018, 2019 bear market. That was really painful because there wasn't anything to do. And I think what gaming and games like Remnants give you an opportunity is there's something to do with your assets or your investments while you're kind of waiting this out. Because let's face it, unless you're an investor or a good trader, you're probably going to stay away from shorting. Maybe you're buying some stuff DCA, which is is great and all, not like NFA, not financial advice. Yep. But games gives you something to participate in. it can get really fucking boring. That's the brunt of it, really. And, if this lasts for a year, 2 years, I think games will be a huge way to onboard new people and get participants to stay in the ecosystems. That's the biggest fear for founders at this point, is everyone's going to get so bearish that they just leave. NFTs go way down, tokens go way down. So I think gaming can be that bridge that keeps people involved.
Yeah, I agree. And I think communities in general can keep people involved during a time like this because, it gets really lonely, when things are in the shitter. And once again, anybody who's been in the space long enough knows, it can get dark. It can get real dark. And when you're in the euphoria phase, I remember, when that first euphoria phase was for me in 2021. Yeah. And I was like, guys, I'm a fucking genius. I'm going to be rich.
You're showing your friends, you're balancing your phone on FTX.
And I'm like, this is the good life. Now I'm like, holy shit, I am broke. I am broke, motherfuckers. I am broke. But no, it feels good to go on Twitter sometimes and have people shit posting about how low is this going to go. I always joke in our group chat, I can't wait for negatives. I'm like, guys, we're going to owe money to own Sol. They're going to be like, oh, you own 200 Sol, cool, you owe $20,000. That is, I just keep joking about that, and it's and it just takes the edge off of what we're going through, because times like this are not fun, but you're not in it alone. So the whole community aspect of things is really, really important, and I think that's one of the cool parts about the NFT space, is that there isn't really that in just crypto in general. So when things are when the crypto market was in the shitter a few years ago, and you go on Twitter, it was doom and gloom, or just no one talked, right? And so once again, when things are euphoric, everybody's in a great mood, all of that. But that is the cool part, I think, about the NFT space, and why I'm kind of glad that actually NFT New York is happening when things are in the shitter, because it's good to know people still give a shit. It's easy to give a shit when we're all making a fuck ton of money. I get that. But when things are not going as well, it is nice to know that there are other people around you who are in it with you, who are supporting you and everything like that, and that you're supporting and all of that. So just a good thing in general. But so one of the things I wanted to talk about, going back into the games and all of that, is I think it's an interesting, when we hear the term play to earn, right? I think one of the things that we get into a lot of times, and you hear people say, not financial advice, but by the way, if you play this game and you can make this amount of money, right? We've seen that a lot with Steppen, right? We've seen that a lot with Axie Infinity. We've seen that with a lot of different games where people are playing it and they're kind of looking at this as well, if this continues going up, I'm going to make $100,000 a month, and it's holy shit. So, that is, we don't have any track record of this happening. So we need to be a little cautious. So how do we find a balance between a game that's just fun to play, but then also knowing that we're all, everybody's in this to make some money. And so there is that, kind of nervous thing about, using the term play to earn, right? So how do we find that balance between a fun game and then knowing that there's a way to make some money with it? How do we find that balance?
There's a couple of components that go into this. The first is, like you were saying, it needs to be fun. So I think with the problem that games have had in the past that we've seen fail is there's not enough to spend on in-game that you actually want to spend on in order to keep playing. So, if you look at the dichotomy of the persona of a gamer in the play-to-earn space, let's look at it as a spectrum. On one hand, you're going to have the gamer, someone who is in it for the game 100%. On the other side, you have the passive incomer who wants 100% to earn from that. You need to find and have that blend where you're really trying to hover around that 50%. And there needs to be a ton of emphasis on the economy that you're building and the tokenomics. I can't stress that enough. Us ourselves, there's a reason it took us. We were working our tokenomics model first day, December 22nd, and we completed it and launched it last night. So we spent, I don't know what the fact is, 6 months, 7 months building this thing out. So I think you need to find and build something where those two personas, the majority of your players fall somewhere around that median. Because I think right now it's still too many passive incomers. You had DeFi Kingdoms. I was a participant that was really built around the Jewel token. You had the heroes and whatnot, but it was really about earning as much yield as possible in those pools or in their bank, which was, again, a couple hundred couple thousand APY. Like, it's just not sustainable. Where is that money coming from? It's coming from the new participants. But then we go back to the Ponzi. You can't keep that going forever. So I think what's going to happen is you need to figure out a way where someone who starts on any given day has the same chance at earning and enjoying the game as someone who was a day one OG. And that's what we're aiming for. And I think we have something special in that. But as we start to have these AAA games, I think this will see more adoption, something that's actually, a long-term story mode or a long-term MMO RPG where consistent content's coming out and there's stuff to do. I try to see everything as staking in my mind. So, I picture it and I say, if you work a job, you are the asset and you are staking yourself. When you're playing a game, the qualm with gaming has always been you're spending all this fucking time playing, hundreds, thousands of hours. But at the end of the day, it equates to nothing but enjoyment. And I think play to earn, as someone with a financial background, is that middle ground where we can start to really bring the financial world and the entertainment world together. But it just has to be done correctly. And I think you have to provide enough value as a player to that economy. Like, let's face it, we're going towards the metaverse. I don't know when it's going to happen, but if you're participating in that economy, providing value to people who seek what you are providing, that's like the real world. You're a farmer, you're a businessman, you're providing something, getting paid to give something to somebody on the other fucking side, right? So I think once that is built for the long term, and there's still no precedence, we're working on it. We think we got something good. I know there's a ton of teams who are well capitalized doing the same, but it has to be a well-functioning economy that almost emulates a real world economy.
And I think, one of my things is I look at it and I go, the play to earn insinuates play to earn money, right? I think there needs to be another definition of what play to earn means. Because if, for example, let's say you guys put out a project that has nothing to do with Remnants, right? It's a completely different project, completely different art. Maybe it's a whole like a meta, like a brand meta play, right? Who knows, whatever it could be, right? Maybe it's like a Remnant in not pixelated form, right?
Yep.
Who knows, whatever that is, right? But maybe it's something that for people who don't really give a shit about gaming, right? Maybe it's that, and maybe playing the game is a way to earn the ability to get that, right? Maybe it's a way to earn, a bubble goose, or maybe it's a way to earn a duppy, or whatever, right? But if there's a way where you can earn something that isn't necessarily just money, directly, I think that's an interesting way to keep people inclined to play the game. Because once again, it goes back to everyone's like, hey, not financial advice, but you could do this with passive income, blah blah blah.
Right.
But once again, we don't have any history of that working out yet, right? Yep. It's the same thing with like DeFi, where people will be like, yeah, well, if you put this into that, the APY is blah, 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 and you're going to make $1 trillion. And it's like, we have no history of that occurring properly and working out, right? Yep. So in terms of long term, right? So that's something that I feel like we need to change the definition of what play to earn means and what you can truly earn. Because if we're just looking at that as money, then you're always just going to have people that go, okay, well, I'm playing this so that I can potentially earn a living, blah, blah. And then, I was reading a Bloomberg article earlier today, and I'm going to read 2 quotes from it because I think they're interesting. We can talk about them. But the first one is, while he doesn't mind playing Axie, he acknowledges he's in it 100% for the money and 0% for recreation. When I want to play games for fun, I play real games, he says. That's the first quote. The second one is, a financial system consisting of people all hoping to put in $1 and take out $2 can only last as long as someone else shows up, believing that others will come in after them with more fistfuls of cash. Yep. Once Axie began looking less profitable, its ability to draw new players decreased, making it even less profitable and setting off a vicious cycle. That is something that I think we see a lot in this space is when you go back to the play to earn. We see that with Steppen right now, right? Where Steppen, I want to say their GST was up to around like $5. Not too long ago. Now it's down to like 20 cents at the time of taping this, right? Who knows what it's going to be in 2 months? Maybe it's back up to $5. Maybe it's 0, right? But I think we got to change the definition of what play to earn means, because if somebody is, let's say they've got 30 Steppen shoes and they're doing their thing right now and all of that, if a walk used to generate you X amount and then all of a sudden it generates you that amount.
For the same walk.
Right. You're just human instinct. You're less inclined to go and do that because it doesn't make as much sense as it once did, right? So how do we incentivize people to continue playing a game if the token price drops? So that's my, I guess, a question for you is how do we incentivize people in that situation?
So we learned that early on, and that was one of our theses as well. Like, all right, we have to make this so there's value outside of just the game token increasing in value. So what we did was we've been building in these aspects of where you're almost getting like gamified airdrops. So for example, for those who don't play our game, you have your remnant, you go on these loot trips, there's like a 0.00 or 0.02 chance of getting infected, which essentially means you become a zombie. That zombie, because it has in-game benefits, is actually worth about, at time of this filming, 40 SOL more than a remnant. So, you always have that like small, it's RNG based, but you have that chance to be like, that's the play and earn side of it too. Your remnant can go from being worth 10 SOL to 50 just by getting lucky in the game. But that's the gamified part of it that keeps people engaged. Or like, for example, there's an item right now where there's only ever going to be 300 of them. You loot that thing's been selling for north of 10 SOL. So it's really a way to keep people engaged. And we'll keep building that over time. There's a finite amount of both of those things. But back to your point, something that we're going to start incorporating is we call them loot tables, which is what you can gain from going on a mission. What we're going to start doing is building like raffle tickets into that, NFTs. So there's that, extrinsic brought into intrinsic value of owning that remnant by being a holder and going on these missions. You get the token, you get some items maybe, and then you can potentially get something that's worth SOL as well. So that's the play and earn side of it too. It can't all be focused on the token or else it'll all just become a fugazi, really.
Right. And we have to, and that's where I think we've seen, raffles really take off as of recent because it's a way for people to kind of win the game without like doing much, right? Even the other day, Ghost Kid, I have a few of those, so does one of my buddies, and there we go. And and so I texted one of my buddies who's like, he's in this space, he's not like huge into it yet, but he has two Ghost Kids, and so he said to me, he's like, well, is there anything I can do with this Boo coin? And I was like, well, they're doing these raffles. I was like, you should just, right now, until we hear, more uses of Boo or whatever, I was like, yeah, throw it in a raffle, do that, right?
Yeah, why not?
So he texted me later. I was out doing a photo shoot, and for people who don't know, I'm a photographer, and so he texted me, and he's like, yo, I won. And I was like, what the hell you mean you won? And I was like, we talked about that like 4 hours ago. He's like, yeah, they had a raffle for a famous fox. I
Quick
won.
work.
Yeah. And I was like, damn, okay, so he just won a famous fox, right? That is like a 40-some or whatever. And so now he's like gung-ho on Ghost Kids, right? He's like, this is the shit, whatever, right?
And a new community too. If he chooses to keep it, then you're like get indoctrinated
Which
to another community.
Yeah, he's like, this is cool. I'm all in on the foxes now. I'm all in on Ghost Kid. And so it's the easiest way to keep people, involved is to give them another way to win the game. And I think Frank did a really good job of that, of talking about that in the podcast episode we did a few months ago, where he said, he's really interested in game theory, and if there's only one way for people to win, then eventually people just kind of like they get tired of that. They need multiple ways to win, right?
Yep.
And so, and win in theory, right? And so that's something that I think is really interesting with this space, is like coming up with multiple ways for somebody to consider. Like, it's really obvious to be like, if you mint a project and then it goes to 200 and you sell it, that's a win, right?
Yep.
But there has to be other ways for you to win. Otherwise, the only incentive is flipping, right? Mm-hmm. And so we have to come up with more ways to incentivize people to hold on to a project and to stay involved in the community and things like that. And I think that's one of the play to earn things that people need to figure out is how do you keep people involved? And I think you guys are doing a great job of that with the zombies, because if you end up getting a zombie, like, you're super excited about that. Obviously you could flip it at that point if you want to, or you can use it for the benefits in game, or you can, continue going on these missions and hoping that you get another zombie, right?
Yeah.
And so, there's a lot of different ways that you can play it and all of that. And I think that's the important part for the gaming, because going back to that first quote, it's like, when I want to play games for fun, I play real games, right?
Yep. That
hurts, because it's like, I think people are trying to build that. But if you look at, I don't know how much it costs to run Fortnite, but it's a fuck ton, right? And no project in this space has the money to create Fortnite, right? So we're a long way from creating something like that. You would have to go get VC money if you wanted to actually create a Fortnite. Like, you need a shit ton of money, way more than an NFT is getting you, and then a lot of time, right, to build something like that. And so we have to find a way to keep people incentivized while also, like you said earlier, like keep people incentivized from day one, but also allowing people to build. And that's something that takes time.
Takes a lot of time. Yep.
Yeah.
I mean, again, we have full team of developers and the shit takes time.
How did you guys, speaking of your team, how did you guys put together your team?
Just grassroots, man. Just grassroots, referrals. We spent some time filtering out the wrong people. We've got a really good team right now. There's the two co-founders who do, project management, game strategy, tokenomics. There's myself, who's the growth lead. And then we've got, back end, front end, mobile, UX, UI. We've got a Web3 developer. We have excellent pixel artists who do everything for us. So it did take time. We didn't have everything in place from day one. And I expect, at the rate that we're going, we may have to expand in the future as well. So anybody listening who's looking to get involved and has some experience, hit us up. I run our Twitter, so hit me with a DM. Always interested. Even though we're not actively hiring, it's good to know that there's people out there.
100%. So a few last questions. Do you guys plan on pursuing VC money? And we talk about, using, obviously it takes a lot of money to make, really epic shit. Do you guys look at, hey, maybe at this point we'll raise money and go do this with it?
So VC money is an interesting topic. The answer right now, to be frank, is no, but it doesn't mean that no is for certain forever. We've wanted to do everything organically, which I think has brought us closer to our community. They are our VCs in a way, which I think is great. It's something that crypto and NFTs allows you to do. But again, we have huge plans for the project. So if it makes sense at that time, we've been contacted and reached out to from several firms who have said, hey, let's have the initial conversations. We've had those. It hasn't made sense in the past, but it might for sure in the future.
There we go. And that's the part about being able to adapt. It's like we talk about that a lot in the NFT space. And sometimes I think people put like a gun to someone's head. They're like, you said this 3 months ago and you changed your mind. And it's like, dude, we change as the market moves. We change as things happen. We change as that's what it's all about in this whole space, is changing and adapting, because it changes and adapts so damn quickly, right? Yeah. I watched a podcast that was a few months ago and it was talking about Sol being $100+. We're currently at Sol being 32. The world changes, the market changes, and we just have to pivot and work with that. And that's the only choice we got. So,
and everyone's super negative right now, but what happens if the Fed pivots and says, you know what, this is too much pain. There's too much, the unemployment rate rises, a whole bunch of macro factors happen and they take the foot off the pedal and suddenly Sol's back to 150. I think everyone gets negative, but we have to, we plan to be optimistic, but also plan for the worst.
Yeah.
I just wanted to throw that in there too. You have to live for today, plan for tomorrow kind of thing. But it could be both ways.
Yeah, 100%. So how do you get people excited about your project if they're not into gaming or your particular type of game?
Yeah, so I think what we're trying to do a better job is leverage our community. So I think we have an outstanding community. They post all the time on Twitter. I think what's tough is when you're on the outside, like any other game, you see somebody loot an item or get infected and you become a zombie. It's tough to really put into layman's terms what that means for someone who's not participating. So I had a conversation. He's a pretty large investor in Solana, HGE. So we were just shooting the shit back and forth on Twitter, and I'm talking about what is it going to take for you to play the Remnants? Because he said yeah, you guys were hitting me up early on, shouldn't have faded you. I'm like, well, what does it take you to play today? And I think we just need to be cognizant of everyone has a different situation. For him, it was like, oh, I don't want to, I don't have the time to play, flat out. But I think what helps is being able to put into layman's terms how the game is played. So what we're working on is really putting out infographics of here's all the items, here's the benefits you get. Again, come back to the play and earn. We don't want to put too much emphasis on oh, you can earn a living, playing the Remnants. But there has to be some sort of factor where, you can see kind of a rough idea of what that ROI is. And, one of my things on Twitter is just try and get people into the Discord. Let's just talk about a sales funnel. If we can get somebody into the Discord, it is active almost 24/7. People just talking game strategy, fucking around. We're pretty certain if you get in the Discord, you will buy a Remnant and play. We're also cognizant of the fact that it's not cheap to buy a character. It's the prices come down correlated with Sol, of course, but still floors at 9 today, 9, 10 hovering about, which has been for quite a while, but that's a significant investment for some. So I think we really do need to paint a picture of why you should be in the community and why the game is fun.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's a question, once again, that everybody has to constantly think about is how do you get people into your project if they're not particular, if they don't love the art, if they don't love the game, if they don't love the utility aspects necessarily, like how can you change somebody's mind, right? And then at the same time, because I think even with D-Gods, like Frank did a good job of that. It's like the team realized the art needs to be better. And like I was one of the people that was like, I love this project, but the art I don't love, I liked it, but I didn't love it. Now I love it. But, that was, and you saw obviously the floor price go with that, right? Yep. So I think when you listen to what people's kind of feedback mechanisms are and what their thoughts are and everything like that, and then you change or adapt your project and grow your project to help suit more people, obviously there's benefits to go along with that. And so I think it's just interesting in general to learn, why people like certain things, why they don't like certain things. And then if there's a way that you want to pivot in order to, to help with that. Yep. And I think that's one of the things that the gaming space is really seeing is that now I think the barrier to entry for a gaming project is a lot higher because I think people want to see that you have an operating game from day one because we were all lied to a trillion times back in the fall of, hey, we got a game coming.
Beta's here. Alpha's here.
I got one, Soul Gone. By the way, those assholes rugged me so hard. Never forget. I put like 30 soul into that shit and it was like $200 and some at that time. So, yeah.
Tax write-off.
Yeah. But, well, if you can even sell them in order to get, I got somebody's got to be a buyer. Yeah, someone's got to buy that shit. So if anybody wants them, let me know. Yep. But literally 10 cents is selling to you. So
smoking deal.
Yeah. But I don't even think somebody would give me 10 cents. But the barrier to entry is higher now. People want to see that you actually have a game because it's one thing to talk about it. It's a whole nother thing to actually go and do it. You guys have done that. You guys have expanded. You guys have grown. The game has changed. The way to play the game has changed. It's very, very cool to see. And I'm looking forward to see where it's at a year from now. And knowing that once again, you guys are in a great financial position to continue operating and continue growing your game and everything like that. It's good to know during a time like this where once again, it can be a little doom and gloom at times like this, but knowing the projects that keep building during all of this are the projects that are going to be killing it 6 months from now, a year from now, 5 years from now, and so forth. Yep. When you look back at where the bear market was in like October, November, December, the projects that built out of that are killing it right now, even with Soul being lower, right? So the projects that kill it right now are going to be, absolutely, kicking ass come, October, November, December of this year, right? Yep. So it's
Yeah, and I wanted to add on to that last point too, because I think there's a common misconception that because our game has been around for 7 months and people do think it's a true play and earn, people think they're late. So we'll have people come into the Discord and say stuff like, oh, I missed the boat. I just wasn't early enough. That's not true whatsoever. And I want to reiterate, like, you can start today and truly be up to speed. So we launched a huge game update today where we introduced a real, it's become more strategy based. Like you have to actually think about what you're doing in order to increase your power within the game, where in the past it's been like, all right, you've, a couple clicks, take 5-10 minutes for a remnant and, you're done. Now there's actual thought, there's actual strategy, and it's new for everyone. So what's been kind of cool is the whales that we have in our community, and there are a few for sure, they're in the Discord, they're like, fuck, I didn't plan for this, or, I don't know what to do with this. So they're, the OGs are even sweating now because they've been put back in the hot seat of how they want to actually play the game. So anybody who's thinking or watching this or, have seen the Remnants, and I've seen it even in Twitter too, people message me all the time, like, I'm late, man. I'm not just, my bad. I'm out. You're not late. This thing is truly just getting started. We haven't even released, a majority of the aspects of the game. So like, again, it sounds corny, but like there's never been a better time, especially with Soul's so fucking cheap. Like, hop on.
All right.
Play it. Enjoy it, man. The community's great. Like, have fun while we're in this pain, the price pain.
Yeah.
Enjoy it.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think that makes complete sense. Is like there's, that's the cool part about what you guys are building is that it's going to keep expanding and everything like that. And there's going to be new strategy. We see that with every big game. I mean, we've seen that with Fortnite. You know, they go from building kind of being like the way you got to do that to recently they rolled out, you know, a no build mode, and people are loving that. And we've seen the buzz for Fortnite increase as a result of that, right? And so it's like as you do various things, if it hits, you know, the projects can go right along with that where people are talking about it, they're doing it, you know, and everything like that. And then also the opposite, if it's not working, you know, and it's going to be really interesting to see where STEPN pivots to. You know, are they able to rescue what's happening right now, or do they, you know, a year from now, somebody going to be like, what the fuck is STEPN, right? Yeah. Or is it going to be like, wow, I can't believe, you know, today that you didn't buy STEPN because you'd be, you know, killing it, right, in 2023, right? So that's the thing with all of this is who has the ability to adopt, who has the ability to adapt, grow, learn, and then continue improving their product. And the people that are able to do that are going to be the projects that are killing it, you know, forever. So
exactly.
So, all right, last question for you. What does the future of Remnants look like?
So, you know, I've alluded to, you know, we have a ton to build for this. Let's call it just Gen 1. Our 8,000 remnants and 4,000 camps. We have a ton to build. So we're going to have our land, which will be a passive standalone generator of our token. You'll be able to build buildings on it, which again will give your characters bonuses. I don't want to get too deep into the minutia of the game itself, because again, if you're looking on the outside, you have no fucking clue what I'm talking about. But there's going to be PvE, PvP, you know, a real estate play within the game. Gangs, which is like if you're a gamer, kind of like guilds or teams where you team up with, there'll be more of a social aspect. Something that we've definitely struggled with, and we've gotten countless feedback from respectable people and advisors, is there's got to be some lower barrier to entry from a cost perspective game to really reach a mass market. And I think for a while we weren't sure if we wanted to actually do that. We didn't know if we wanted just the remnants to, you know, have a couple thousand unique users, build a kick-ass game. We want that, but we want to also go bigger. So, you know, we're actively working on setting up like a spoiler. This is probably the first time we've actually really come out and said it publicly.
Here we go. Alpha
coming. Yeah. So we want to introduce like a true Web3 parent company for the remnants, like a labs. You know, we'll work on the name of it and the nomenclature, but you know, we want that labs to effectively be the parent company for, you know, any software, including games. So for the game itself, we want to create a free-to-play game. Again, this is we don't want to give out too much because in our minds this is going to be a huge fucking game changer, and we don't want it to be copied or, you know, get front run on this. So I don't want to give out too much, but it's going to be a way for those who, you know, don't want to put up a decent amount of capital up front to play a game similar to Remnants with a play and earn feature that really just gives value back to those Gen 1 holders and the camp token itself. So kind of building an ecosystem of games around that game token.
Yeah.
So that's what we're gonna you know, work on next. Watch in the coming months. Talk about us releasing said game. Super fucking excited. You know, we've taken a page out of we've seen enough right now from STEPN, from DeFi Kingdoms, from ourselves, from those who are building AAA games. We're kind of just like taking an aggregate of everything that looks good and can work, and we're going to build something new for everyone.
That's very cool. That's very cool. I'm going to bring up an idea real quick, and this somebody could be like, this is awful. I don't care. So there's a game that I play on my phone when I'm either sitting on the can, if I'm being honest, or if I'm on a flight or whatever. It's a game called
Play.
Yeah, exactly. It's a game called Crossy Road. Are you familiar with Crossy Road?
I'm not.
It's essentially like a Frogger type of game, right? Okay. And so last night I was at Dave & Buster's, and they actually had like a my God, I literally just forgot the name of it again. They actually had Crossy Road as a legitimate game that you could play at Dave & Buster's, and obviously you can earn tokens and things like that. Maybe it's something where you guys create a really, really simple game like that, where it's like, okay, that's our free-to-play game that like anybody can play, or there's like a super, super, super low cost for it. It's like literally like 0.02 Sol, something like super cheap, right? And then if they get to a certain point, like if you get to like 1,000 steps on that, or, you know, 1,000 points on that, whatever, you earn a remnant, right? Yep. Maybe it's something along those lines, or maybe you earn camp coin that then could be converted to a remnant. Maybe there's something like that where there's like a really cheap game to play, but it's difficult. It's really difficult. So it's not like somebody's going to play it for an hour and they're going to get that, right? Like Crossy Road, when I think my high score on there is like 280, right? Somebody's going to watch this and be like, my high score is like 900. But maybe you make it where it's 1,000, right? And that lasts like 900 to 1,000 is brutal, right? And so it's really, really difficult to do. Maybe that's the way to do something like that, right? I don't know, you know, but it's the way to create like obviously with everything, the biggest thing that holds back, I think, some NFT projects is the fact that only so many people can hold them, right? So if there's a way to increase the user base, then attention is going to go right along with that. Steppen's a great example of that, as the user base is gigantic. There's nothing that's even fucking close to Steppen, right? So if they're able to do Steppen right, you have 1 trillion people that are then talking about your project. If the changes you make don't work out, then you got 1 trillion people who are ready to shit on your project. So there's that too, right? But the more people you have in it, the more likelihood it reaches mainstream, and you have more people talking about it and playing it and everything like that. So, yeah, I think that's the question that you guys have to solve, and I'm very curious to see how that plays out and how it goes. And but I'm excited for the future of Remnants, and I'm excited for other projects to learn from Remnants, and and it's good to see high quality projects sticking around in the space, doing well, knowing that you guys are well set up for the future. And I'm very bullish about the future of Remnants. For sure. I hate the phrase, and I think it's overused, but our goal is to be a blue chip and here for a while. We're doing the right things. We've got the right team. We'll keep expanding where needed. We have the levers within the game to keep this thing going and keep everyone interested. But yeah, we're stoked, man. There we go. The future is very bright. There we go. Whether Soul is up or down, we have high levels of conviction in what we're building. We'll love to hear that. So, all right. So real quick, where can people find you? Yeah, at Remnants NFT on Twitter, Remnants NFT in Discord. My name, if you want to reach out to me, JuiceCrypt0 with a 0 at the end. That's my personal Twitter. And then we actually just moved domains, so I might have to post this online, the actual website for the game itself. But if you want to get involved in the game, I would always recommend going into the Discord first, because even buying your first Remnant, there's little quirks of seeing what a Remnant has before purchasing it. So head into the Discord, then head over to Magic Eden or a Fractal or a Hyperspace before purchasing. But yeah, join us, man. It's fun. It's fun. It's addicting too. It's part of the problem. I found myself, you alluded before, can you play it on the shitter? Can you play it on the plane? I kind of knew we were onto something cool when I was literally, about to board a flight. And here I am with my Remnants going on some loot trips. I'm like, oh, this is nice. Yeah. That's what it's all about. That's what it's all about. I mean, it's really cool to see once again what you guys are doing, and I'm excited to see the future of it. And so yeah, that's well, hey, thank you for coming out. Appreciate it. Thank you. And it's been great. And yeah, guys, this is a time where we need a fun game like this. So go and get your Remnant. Go start playing the game. Provide that feedback. Let's, I'm really curious. I can't wait to watch these podcast episodes like a year from now and just see how everything has grown and changed and developed and everything like that. So I'm looking forward to it. But once again, man, appreciate you coming on. I'm looking forward to seeing where the podcast is in a year. There we go. So let's keep it building. Let's keep it growing. And everybody else, have a good day. Yep. Thanks, brother. All right. See you guys. See ya.